I remember when I first set out to learn Spanish a handful of years ago, the first thing that I did was I sat down to write what is the best way to go about doing this, the best way to go about learning a new language, because I don't want to waste my time spending 5 years to acquire Spanish. People go off and they get degrees in Spanish. If I could have done it in 6 months, which I know has been done too. And so I sat down to write about it, and I decided, what my intuition told me was, okay, if I study its grammar, the rules of the language, that should enable me to master the language, right? As you learn about language learning, though, what you'll discover is that this method of language learning is not only inefficient, it's outdated and broken. It does not work. In this video, I want to share with you why this intuitive way of going about learning a language is a waste of your time, even though it's the norm across most of the world, most language classrooms across the world. And then I want to give you my advice for how I would go about learning my first second language if I was starting over. So stick around, because if you're setting out to learn your first second language, this video could save you years of struggle and wasted time. Empecemos. To illustrate why the intuitive way of going about learning a new language doesn't work, I want to share with you something very interesting. There are students right now in Japan studying a rule in the English language that you and I wouldn't be able to put a name to. We wouldn't be able to articulate, and yet we honor it. Here it is. It's called adjective order, and it's the reason that in English we can say the big red dog. But we cannot say, or wouldn't sound natural, to say the red, big dog. This rule says that the order is based on the semantic category or type of adjective, progressing from more objective/inherent qualities to more subjective/opinion-based ones. Now let me ask you, why is it that students in Japan are studying this and many other subconscious rules of the English language in order to learn how to speak English, but you and I, who speak English fluently as our first language, we're not even aware of them? The reason is very simply that there are two kinds of language understanding. There is one that is conscious, knowing about the language, being able to articulate the rules of the language, memorize the rules of the language, and explain them like I just did. And then there is proficiency in the language, internalizing the language so that you can recall the words that you wish to express on command. The way that Noam Chomsky put it was that learning a language is kind of like riding a bicycle. It grows in the mind. And much like riding a bicycle, the way that you go about learning a language is not like how you would go about learning mathematics. Very logical and conscious memorization of rules and processes. But rather, all that is needed is exposure and practice. In 1977, University of Southern California professor Stephen Krashen released what he called his input hypothesis. This hypothesis revolutionized language learning by emphasizing natural exposure over rote grammatical drilling. Krashen's theory was that rather than try to consciously understand and memorize the rules of a language, which was not leading to proficiency, it made more sense to emphasize what he called comprehensible input. What this means is that watching a video, reading an article, reading a book, listening to a podcast, listening to music, any form of consumption of the language will do more for your proficiency than studying out of a textbook. The key, however, is that the input must be comprehensible. If you watch a video in French and it's just complete gibberish, you're not going to get anything from that video. You're not going to build any proficiency. On the other hand, though, if I tell you, esto es una botella de agua, probably you understood what I meant. And from there, that base understanding, the only thing necessary to continue building your proficiency is simply repetition. I've talked about this briefly in other videos, but for those of you who don't know, the methodology I'm about to share with you is the same one that I used to go from no proficiency in any other language other than English at age 26 to an intermediate to maybe slightly advanced level of Spanish in a matter of about 5 months. It also happens to be the same methodology that I'm planning to use again now that I'm teaching myself a third language, which is French. So here it is. The first step of this process is to download a language learning application called Pimsleur. I chuckle because I suspect a lot of you would have guessed Duolingo. Whenever I tell people that I use the language learning app to learn a new language, they always guess Duolingo. It's so funny to me. But no, it wasn't Duolingo. Pimsleur is a language learning program. The way that it works is you subscribe to an account, and 30 minutes a day you set aside for the day's lesson. One lesson per day, 30 minutes a day. You listen to a native speaker speak. They'll say something in the target language. The narrator of the program will tell you what it means, and then you're to repeat exactly what the native speaker said and how they said it, so that you're practicing not just the language itself, but the pronunciation as well. By walking through this program with the narrator translating each phrase for you as you go, you are not only consuming comprehensible input because you understand each phrase that you're hearing and saying, but you're also practicing what's called active recall, and this has been proven to improve retention tenfold. What I'll say is that it really is as simple as 30 minutes a day. Consistency will lead to results. I am, however, this time around in learning French, because I'm subscribed to Pimsleur again in order to learn French, I'm adding a few things this time in order to more tactically practice the words and phrases that I'm learning with Pimsleur, because as compared to my experience with Spanish, where I had ample opportunity to practice the language with the native speakers that I had around me living in Texas, French, that's not going to be so easy. And so one of the things that I'm doing with French differently this time around is I'm capturing the phrases that I learn every lesson in Pimsleur in a database in Notion, and I have a shortcut that I've created in Notion in order to do that really quickly and easily while I'm doing the Pimsleur lessons. And those phrases then, because those are the specific ones that I'm learning and I want to practice, that database will enable me to have something to point to when I work with a tutor or a language learning partner or even AI. If you're curious about Pimsleur and you'd like to maybe give it a shot, I have reached out to Pimsleur about possibly creating an affiliate relationship, because I know the product, I've used the product, I love the product, I know it works, I'm using it again to learn French. I'm going to leave a link in the description below that I'm hoping I'll hear back from them. I haven't heard back from them yet, but I'm hoping that the link will be an affiliate link, so you can, if you're interested, you can also support the channel. But even if I don't hear back from them, I'll still leave a link where you can sign up with them, and it may or may not be an affiliate link supporting the channel, but it'll not cost you any extra either way.